The morning sun cast a warm golden glow across Port Charles, but for Trina Robinson, it felt like the calm before the storm. She stood by the window of her art gallery, her reflection fractured against the glass, much like her trust in the people around her. Ever since Kai's arrival in Port Charles, something had felt off. His charm was as sharp as a dagger's edge, and Trina, whose intuition had rarely failed her, had kept her distance. But Kai had wormed his way into the circles she cared about, closer to Drew Kane, closer to people she once believed untouchable. Drew, meanwhile, had grown darker, quieter. Their once warm friendship had been replaced by cold, cryptic exchanges. Drew had always been the steady one, the anchor everyone leaned on. But now there was something haunted behind his eyes. And Trina couldn't shake the feeling that Kai had everything to do with it. As she rearranged a canvas, her phone buzzed. It was Ava, her mentor and confidant, reminding her about dinner that night. Trina smiled softly. Amidst all the chaos, Ava's loyalty had been a lifeline. Little did she know, tonight would be the night everything changed. Later that evening, Trina found herself at the Savoy, where Ava had insisted on meeting. But Ava had been delayed, and Trina, not wanting to sit idle, drifted toward the dimly lit back hallways. Voices floated from behind a partially open door, familiar voices that made her freeze mid-step. Drew's low rumble, laced with frustration, and Kai's smoother, colder tone, sharp as broken glass. Trina's heart raced as she pressed herself against the wall, straining to hear. "You promised me leverage, Drew," Kai hissed. "But instead, you bring me nothing but loose ends and regrets." "And you promised me protection," Drew snapped back. "You said you could erase my past, make it all disappear." "I still can," Kai sneered, "but only if you remember who holds the real power here." "Don't threaten me," Drew began. "Oh, but I will," Kai interrupted. "Because without me, your secret destroys you. And without your cooperation, my weakness destroys me." Trina's breath caught. Weakness? Kai had a weakness? Her heart pounded so loudly she feared they'd hear it. "What is it then?" Drew demanded. What could possibly bring down the mighty Kai? "Don't be stupid enough to repeat this," Kai said, lowering his voice to a near whisper. Trina leaned closer, every nerve on edge. "If anyone knew about the ledger, the real ledger, it would be the end of me. Everything, the bribes, the accounts, the offshore connections. It's hidden in plain sight, Drew. And if anyone ever found it..." The voices trailed off as Kai moved further into the room, but Trina had heard enough. Her mind spun. A ledger. Proof of Kai's crimes. And Drew, what had Drew done that Kai could bury? Trina staggered back into the main bar, trying to catch her breath. Her hands trembled as she texted Ava. "Running late. Need to talk. Urgent." She knew she couldn't face this alone. But who could she trust? Ava, yes, but beyond that? Curtis? Maybe. Spencer? The thought twisted the knife deeper. Spencer had been gone so long, lost to his own demons. She glanced across the room and saw Drew, exiting the hallway with Kai. Their conversation had left Drew pale and shaken, and Kai wore a mask of icy triumph. A plan formed in Trina's mind, risky and desperate. Find the ledger. Expose Kai. Save Drew from whatever hold Kai had on him. But there was a second part of the plan forming too, one she dreaded. If Drew had committed crimes, if he'd hurt people, could she really protect him? She knew the answer. She couldn't. She wouldn't be like Kai, someone who protected monsters for power. If Drew had betrayed everything he stood for, he had to face the consequences. For days, Trina searched. She scoured public records, questioned people close to Kai under the guise of art gallery networking, and followed financial breadcrumbs that led to dead ends. But then, late one night at the gallery, she remembered Kai's words, hidden in plain sight. Trina returned to the Savoy after hours, using the spare key Ava had trusted her with. The club was empty, lights dimmed, the scent of spilled whiskey lingering in the air. In Kai's private office, she moved cautiously. Drawers. Cabinets. A laptop. And then, behind a row of expensive liquors, a false panel. Her pulse raced as she opened it and found a slim black notebook. The ledger. Flipping through its pages, she saw the evidence. Names, dates, bribes, shell corporations tied to Port Charles power brokers. And Drew's name, scrawled in Kai's sharp handwriting, linked to money transfers. Her stomach twisted. She photographed every page, uploaded them to a secure folder, then replaced the ledger exactly as she found it. Outside, the summer night felt heavy, charged with secrets about to burst. Trina called Ava first, and Ava, fierce as ever, insisted they go to Jordan Ashford, the police commissioner. But Trina had one more thing to do. She texted Drew. "We need to talk. Alone." They met at Pier 55, under the flickering lamplight. Drew looked exhausted, guilt etched into every line of his face. "Trina, what's this about?" he asked, voice rough. "Kai's ledger," she said, steady despite her shaking heart. "I found it, and I know what you did." His face crumpled. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand," she demanded. "Why, Drew? Why would you help him?" "Because he promised to erase what I did during the time I was controlled by Helena Cassadine," Drew confessed. "The crimes I can't even remember. If the truth ever comes out." "I was terrified. I didn't know how else to keep it buried." "You let fear turn you into someone who helped a monster," Trina whispered, tears burning her eyes. "That's not the Drew I knew." "I know," Drew whispered, voice cracking. "I know. It's over," she said. "I'm turning it all in." "Then do it," Drew whispered, his shoulders slumping. "Maybe it's time I finally pay for my mistakes." Jordan moved fast once Trina delivered the evidence. Arrest warrants were issued for both Kai and Drew. The morning they were taken into custody, Port Charles buzzed with shock. Cameras flashed as Kai, usually composed, shouted at officers. His mask shattered, revealing the ruthless predator beneath. Drew, by contrast, was silent, resigned. His eyes met Trina's across the courtyard of the PCPD, and for a moment, she saw the man he'd been, the man he might still become if he faced the consequences and sought redemption. At the gallery later that day, Ava hugged Trina fiercely. "You did the right thing," she whispered, "even when it broke your heart." "I just wish it hadn't come to this," Trina replied softly. Kai's trial promised to be explosive. The ledger implicated powerful people, politicians, business owners, even figures connected to other crime families. Port Charles would never be the same. Drew's future remained uncertain. His lawyers argued that Kai had coerced him, that his actions were rooted in desperation to bury trauma he couldn't remember. But some damage could never be undone. Trina visited Drew once at Pentonville. Through the glass, they spoke softly. "I'm sorry," Drew said, "for everything." "I know," she replied, "and I hope you find a way to forgive yourself." "You're stronger than anyone I've ever known," Drew told her, tears in his eyes. "Be that man again, Drew," she urged. "The man who helped me when I first lost my father. Be him again." In the weeks that followed, Trina tried to rebuild her life. The guilt weighed heavily on her. Had she betrayed someone she cared about? Or had she saved him? One night at the gallery, she stood alone, staring at a painting she'd done after her father's death. It was raw and imperfect, much like life itself. Curtis found her there, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did something brave," he told her. "You protected this town, even when it cost you." "I just wish things were different," Trina whispered. "Wishing doesn't change what is," Curtis said softly. "But what matters is what you do next." At trial, Kai tried everything: bribery, threats, charm. But the evidence Trina had uncovered was undeniable. Witnesses testified, financial records were traced, and the jury saw him for what he was: a ruthless criminal willing to destroy anyone to protect his power. The day the guilty verdict was read, Trina stood outside the courthouse, the wind whipping her hair around her face. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. Months later, life in Port Charles began to settle. Drew remained in prison, but Trina received a letter from him, handwritten. "Trina, thank you for saving me from myself. I don't know what the future holds, but I hope one day I can make amends." Until then, keep being brave. The world needs you.
Drew.
Trina folded the letter and placed it in a box of memories, painful, yet precious. Standing in the gallery, she opened a new exhibit. The first piece was untitled, painted in bold strokes of red and gold. She called it Weakness and Redemption. Ava, Curtis, and her friends gathered, supporting her. And in that moment, Trina realized that while the past couldn't be erased, the future was still hers to shape. Kai's conviction sends shockwaves through Port Charles, leading to further arrests tied to the ledger. Drew faces a long road of accountability, but begins therapy to confront his past. Trina's courage inspires others. Could she step into a new leadership role in Port Charles society? Ava, proud of her protege, becomes Trina's fiercest ally. And as new threats emerge on the horizon, Trina discovers that true strength isn't about being fearless. It's about acting, even when your heart is breaking.